moment, anything can change, but not here. We're both still the same. Welcome to After Action Report here on the Call to Action podcast channel, your numbers recap show for all Schmoedown matches to keep you caught up on all the action. I'm your host, Megs, joined as always here by my co-host, Nat. Thanks to everybody here joining in live, seeing a couple new faces here. Brendan, nice to see you back up here again. Ben Rayner, always nice to see you in here as well. But Nat, we had a relatively short week, shorter than last week.
Yeah, definitely a lot shorter than last week. Last week was a doozy. This one was fun. I thought it was pretty straightforward, but lots of enjoyable matches.
Absolutely. We're just starting to get rolling into the tournament season, so definitely this show I feel like is going to be good for me to be able to keep up with all the tournament matches coming up. But what we had going on this week, we have the start of the IG tournament with Robert Parker going up against Jesse Swift, and we had two more round one matches inside the singles tournament with William Viviani up against Jacob London, and also Jada Paramo up against Paige Ferretti. And we will be spoiling this, but we had the pay-per-view versus match of a title match that was live at the Scum and Villainy Cantina, which was really cool to see, with Dangerous Dan Murrell up against Ethan Irwin. This round one of the singles tournament is starting to fill out. We're starting to see more and more matches rolling out. We've got some more coming out this week, as well as the IG tournament. And we are also seeing a season best for one of our IG competitors. We'll talk more about that later. And we're seeing which one of these top-ranked competitors is going to be joining in on the tournament this season. So without further ado, how about we go ahead and just jump right into our first match of the week, where we saw Robert the Spider Parker coming back after his last match in a loss of number one contender to Chandru up against Jesse the Jackal Swift. Coming into this first round here, we see that Parker is up by 3, going perfect there for the full 11. Jesse coming away with 8 points there, missing Star Trek and a graphic novels question. A much improvement from the first couple of matches that we have seen Jesse Swift in. So definitely a good thing to see there. Nat, did you have anything you wanted to add on him there?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely a huge improvement. I've been following Jesse Swift's career for this entire year because he's on the fantasy team. But I really like to see when players actually show improvement. Like you can tell that he's actually put time into getting better. And it's shown this match, even though it did result in a loss. I did think he's taking steps in the right direction. So very excited to see what the future holds for young Jesse Swift.
Absolutely. So if we shift over into the second round here, we see that Parker defers to have Jesse spin first, who spins away from dystopian future and time travel and ends up with Marvel, where he is able to come away with 8 out of 10 available points. He checks down the multiple choice once and does give away that question for a 1-point steal, which segues into Robert Parker's round, where he decides to take Wizarding World on his first spin and is able to sweep the round for the full 10 out of 10, which does give Parker an additional 3-point advantage to now be up by 6, coming into the third and final round, where Jesse hits a 2-pointer in Indiana Jones, a 3-pointer in Alien Predator, however is unable to hit a 5-pointer in Wizarding World, which does give Parker the win via TKO with a final score of 22-21, where Robert Parker, back into his former season form, going 17 out of 17 for questions and 100% accuracy and 100% of 22 available points earned. Jesse able to hit 14 out of 18 questions for 78% accuracy and 21 points out of the available 31 for 68 percentage points earned. So again, like I said, this is about a 20% improvement for Jesse and his average coming into this match. So really good to see him just progressively improving throughout this season.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that his stock went up way more in a match where he lost than the last match he had where he won. I think going to this match, definitely Parker was the heavy favorite for good reason. But Jesse Smith shows that he belongs in this division. Like he can compete with the best of them. And like I said, I'm excited to see what he does. But Robert Parker, he's just doing Robert Parker things. We so this is a future plug I'm going to do later on. But we're having Chandra on No Chill, and to get ready for that episode, we had to look at their stats and everything, and we just assumed that Chandru's stats were near the top. And looking at Robert Parker's stats, it's remarkable that he has not won a championship yet. The level he's playing at, I think it's just a matter of time. I think he's gonna have way more perfect games than this one. So he's definitely a. I would say personally, he's my pick to win a tournament. He's just so good.
He seems to be the odds-on favorite. He will be facing off against the winner of the match that actually dropped on Patreon today. We won't talk about it, but it is Ethan Irwin against Paulo Yama, which is going to be a very interesting matchup in the IG division. Definitely looking forward to talking about that next week. And Ryan, thanks for the comment there. I love that you're enjoying our breakdowns and our thoughts on the matches. We definitely put some good thought into that there, but we are going to. What was that?
I appreciate you, Ryan.
Yes, we always do. All right, we are going to shift on over to our next match, which is over in the start of the singles tournament, where we have William Bibiani up against Jacob London, the Aussie. Definitely a rookie that I was very excited to get to see when we were in the preseason earlier this year. But jumping right into where we started off at, London is actually up by 2. He gets a perfect round plus the bonus. William does miss one in movie release dates, which gives London the upper hand 9-7 going into the second round, where London spins first. He spins away from the 1990s and ends up taking young adult adaptations, where he's able to get 4 out of 8 available points. He checks on the multiple choice twice and gives up a 2-point question for a steal that Bibiani is able to capitalize on. And not surprising, Bibiani spins away from movie release dates and ends up taking Kevin Hart. And if you guys didn't check the Call Live episode that aired yesterday, we had Danny and Belford had a really good conversation with Bibiani as well as Robert Parker, as we were talking about earlier. So make sure you check that interview out. But getting back into this match, Bibiani is able to get 6 out of 8 points. He checks on the multiple choice twice, but does not give away any steals on that round. So he gains an additional 4 points to now be himself up by 2, 15-13. London was up by 2. Bibiani gains 4. He's now up by 2, 15-13, going into the third and final round, where it is a ping pong back and forth. London hits his 2-pointer in Action Adventure. Bibiani 2-pointer 1990s. Jacob 3-pointer in biopics. Bibiani 3-pointer in thrillers. But Jake misses a 5-pointer in romantic comedies, which does give Bibiani the win with a final score of 20-18, where William Bibiani answered 14 of 15 questions for 93% accuracy and scored 83% of 24 available points. And Jacob London answered 14 of 16 questions for 88% accuracy and scored 67% of 27 available points. This was a tough test for both of them. Bibiani being down in that first round, having to kind of fight his way back there in that second round to give himself the advantage being ahead into that third round, because you couldn't underestimate what Jacob London was going to do.
Yeah, I want to say this was my sleeper pick for a banger of a match, but I don't know how much of a sleeper it was, because Jacob London has been shown that he's a force, like especially in the free-for-all. I think that we don't have the bracket, obviously, but if we did, I would suspect that if I had to pick a an upset to happen, this would have been it. Because clearly Vivian's a favorite. He's had an accomplished Schmoedown career, but Jacob London has proven that he can go toe to toe with anyone. So definitely an interesting match to see. I did think it was interesting that young adult movies were really what did him in this match. That's when the tide shifted. So
Mhm.
it really shows how important the round two matches, the round two is, and
Mhm.
it shows that you need to be so well rounded. You need to cover all your bases in order to succeed in the Schmoedown. Bibian took advantage of what was exposed as a weakness in this match, and I think that in a lot of matches, Jacob Lund would have come up with the win. It was just the luck of the wheel.
Absolutely. And those young adult questions, they've come up a fair amount of times, so they are starting to comb a little bit deeper into what type of questions they're going to be asking. And interesting thought here by Brian, mistake to spin first. If you have a lead of it, he corrects later, it's 2 or less coming out of that first round. Some people will almost always spin first or almost always spin second. It depends on how you're feeling in the match, what kind of momentum you want to bring into that match.
Yeah.
But in general, it is understood that the majority of players will defer if given the option. But some players just really enjoy taking that lead momentum and just keeping it going. That it's usually a personal preference to the player as well as the philosophy of the given faction or the manager relationship that they develop. So
Yeah.
that is a very interesting school of thought that has been dived into quite a bit.
I'm not gonna say if there's a right or wrong answer to like whether you should or should not spin first. I think it's mostly goes down to player preference. Like we talked about on AAA Live, there are momentum players and there are strategy players. But I do think there's a lot that goes into it. Like you need to understand what's on the wheel. You want to see if you go second, there's an advantage to that because you have a better understanding of what you might get because you have one less dice to worry about. So I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm not gonna sit here and say like they should do this or should do that. I think it goes down to the player.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, it's been talked about quite a bit. I feel like I would want to go in with more of an understanding of exactly what's going on, but it all comes down to the preference, and there really hasn't been not that I've seen a definite advantage to one or the other as far as outcomes go. So that is a fun thing to speculate on and to analyze as far as looking at individual players. Speaking of individual players that bring a lot to the table, we have got our third match of the week, Jada Parama against Paige Betty, representing the Den and the Usual Suspects, respectively. This match got a little fiery. It was a lot of fun. So coming into the first round of the match, we see that Paige is up by 2, 7-5. Neither of them able to get that perfect round, but keeping it still within 2 points. Paige defers over to Jader, who spins opponent's choice on the first go and ends up being given Nora Ephron, where he comes away with 6 out of 8, checks out a multiple choice, but does not give away any steals. He checks out a multiple choice twice, but no steal opportunities. Then we go over to Paige. She spins away from 2010s and ends up taking Judd Apatow, where she checks out a multiple choice twice, but gives up that 1 2-point steal, which was the subject of a challenge, which ended up going in Jader's favor. He's given another question due to the logistics of it. He ends up getting that second question for the 2-point steal. At the end of the day, all parties seemed reasonably happy with how things were ultimately handled. Maybe not the ruling, but the way it was handled was done appropriately based on the circumstances of what was going on. So that is where we stood there. And Jader ends up getting 4 points up on Paige to where he is now up by 2. Similar situation to where we are now going into the third round. Jader up 13-11, where Paige hits her 2-pointer in 2000s. Jader hits a 2-pointer in Spielberg. Paige hits a 3-pointer in Coming of Age, Jader 3-pointer in Disaster Films, and Paige hits her 5-pointer in New Releases, but Jader misses a 5-pointer in Meryl Streep, which does give Paige the win with a final score of 21-18, where Jader Perron was able to answer 12 of 16 questions for 75% accuracy, scored 62% of 29 available points, and Paige Ferbetti answering 13 of 15 questions for 87% accuracy and scored 78% of 27 available points. So again, another nice back and forth. At any moment, something changed that shifted the tide of the match, similar to what we saw with Bibiani and Blunden. Those particular moments inside the match just changed the tide in either direction.
Paige has been so impressive. She's impressed me so much, and I think this match in particular, the stats don't really do her justice, because clearly she knew the question in round 2 that she got stolen from her. I think there's a lot to be said for that challenge. I think that Jader made the right call challenging that, because that was not the name of the movie. But there is still the benefit of the doubt rule, and I don't really want to get into it because I don't know, it's a tough call to make, really. So I'm very happy to see Paige get the win. I think Paramo gave her such a big fight, and Paige really showed her grit, because she went into round 3 and she did what she had to do. She answered all of her questions right, and that's what you need to do to win. And Ben Renner says this was a great match. I want Paige to take the tournament. I do too, Ben. I hope she wins. I really do, because I love her, and she's on my fantasy team, and she has a great energy to her that I love to see. So I think it's not inconceivable that she could. I think she's just getting better.
Absolutely. She is definitely getting a lot of high praise from her manager and other members of her faction, so definitely has the potential to make it far, but it is a 32-person tournament. Anything can happen, and we are getting into spoiler territory here. We're going to be talking about the Versus event, where somebody else got added to the tournament roster here with the outcome of Dangerous Dan Murrell against Ethan Big Time Irwin. Fourth time that these guys have faced off against each other. Going in, they were 2-1, Murrell having the advantage. But where we came out of this match with round 1, and by the way, this is back live in front of a studio audience. Awesome to see. So much energy, so much fun. Dan comes out with the 2-point lead, going perfect, plus the bonus. Irwin missing only 1 question, but Murrell is up by 2, 9-7, coming into the second round with a physical wheel. Dan decides to defer over to Ethan, who takes 1970s on his first spin. He is able to come away with 6 out of 8 points, checking out a multiple choice once, and does give up a 1-point steal on that check down question. Coming over to where Dan spins, he spins away from the directors and still ends up with directors. So that first question, he checks down a multiple choice, has that stolen, but is able to still come away with 6 out of 8 points. Again, only giving up that 1 multiple choice steal. So in the end, Dan is still up by 2. They both were able to get 7 points in that round, so we are still up to Dan 16-14 going into the betting round, where because Murrell is up, he spins the wheel again, and he ends up with Halle Berry, where they both bet 3 points, and they both miss the question. Unusual to see both of these guys missing in a betting round question, but it does happen. No change in points again here. Murrell's still up by 2, but it is now 13-11 is the score going into the buzzer speed round. Again, moments in time when things change. This is another one. Yeah. We see that Irwin hits the first 4 questions, not getting any of them incorrect, to gain 4 points. Dan is able to buzz in on the final question, getting it correct for 1 point. So Erwin has now gained 3 points to where he is up by 1, 15-14, going into the fifth and final round. This is the championship match, so championship round, as you would expect, back and forth. Dan, 2-pointer in horror. Ethan, 2-pointer in 1980s. Dan, scores and soundtracks for 3 points. Erwin, 2000s for 3 points. Dan hitting a 5-pointer in Tom Cruise. Ethan Erwin hitting his 5-pointer in action adventure, which does give Ethan Erwin the win with a final score of 25-24, where Dan Merle answered 17 of 19 questions for 90% accuracy and scored 67% of 36 available points. And we saw Ethan Erwin answered 18 of 21 questions for 86% accuracy and scored 69% of 36 available points. So, just looking at staying on these numbers here for a minute, technically, Dan was more accurate by the numbers. However, because of the advantage in the speed round, that moment was just enough of a shift to give Ethan the advantage going into that final round, which by the potential points earned was able to give Ethan Erwin the win. So, what this means, we now have Dangerous Dan Merle in a tournament, which we have not seen since 2018. I'd be nervous.
I would be too. I mean, could you imagine you're in the tournament, first round, you're up against Dan Merle? Like, that's gonna, oh my God, I'd be shaking in my boots just thinking about it. I'm not even in the tournament.
Well, anything can happen in a 3-round match, but
yeah, I mean,
there's definitely still an intimidation factor there.
Anything can happen. We've seen huge upsets before, even against Dan Merle. But I mean, it's Dan Merle. He's the GOAT. This match, I mean, everything you would have expected. It's it can go either way, and we've seen it go either way. We've seen it go Dan's favor, and now they're tied at 2-2 in this particular match. So you'll have to see when two titans of the game are so evenly matched and they take each other to the limit. I think that I'm very impressed by Ethan Erwin's advantage in the speed round. I think that if you were smart, you would have put in a lot of work in the speed round, knowing that knowing that live matches are coming back. So props to him. I think that's what won him the match. I think it was super close, and any little thing will do it, and that's what did it.
Absolutely. So Ben Rayner puts a question up here. If it was fast money, would Dan have won? That is a very interesting question. Given that he was looking at the history of these guys, they are normally within 1 or 2 points of each other in the speed round comparatively. As far as what you see as when they've done the fast money rounds, you're not going to see a 3-4 point swing with these guys. It's just not going to happen. They're that accurate in the speed round format that I don't think we would have seen as much of a swing. So it's possible that Erwin might have been able to tie. I don't know if we would have seen a 3-point swing. But they were so tight the whole match, though. I mean, a 2-point advantage was the most that these guys ever got on each other. So I don't know. I don't know how much.
I think it's hard to say.
The shift in momentum was the biggest thing for here, even more so than the points.
I think in this particular matchup, we don't know what the round 4 questions would have been if it was fast money. But I would venture to say that Dan Merle probably would have won. But, I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda. This wasn't that kind of match. I think that Ethan Erwin definitely deserves it for the way he played that speed round. It was very impressive. I have a question for you. Do you prefer fast money to the speed round, or which one do you like better?
That is a very good question. Trying to think.
See, for me, I think I slightly prefer the speed round because it adds a different element to it. It adds a.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah,
just because that is that live element, you're having to outthink, be ahead of the questions.
yeah.
And that was kind of when I did competitive trivia, that was kind of how we were. We had to buzz in at it before six other competitors. So you had to be that fast twitch reaction. And so I think that just, again, it's a different type of skill that has to be implemented. So I think as far as the changes it can make to the game, I think I prefer the buzz around.
Yeah, I do too.
But having the fast money option during the digital era definitely was a good thing. There would have been, I've tried to practice a buzzer style inside of a digital format, and it's a mess. It's not any fun to try. But those were all the matches that we had for this week. Everything that we saw, pretty, again, only 4 matches, but were definitely no less exciting. I think it's going to be very interesting to see the singles tournament develop as we get going along. We're going to be seeing the IG tournament just keeping truck along. Then we have to look forward to Star Wars and the teams tournament later on in this season. So we will not be lacking anything to talk about over the next few months.
Mm-hmm. It's tournament season again, and it feels like it's always tournament season. But
well, because we had those mini tournaments at the beginning of the year, I feel like we just never got out of tournament season.
Right.
But that is all we're going to be talking about, and that'll be it for this week's episode. We'll be right back here on Mondays, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. You can find all of the socials for the show down in the description of this video. Be sure you're checking out Call Live as well. We're getting some really nice interviews with competitors. Again, getting a little bit more consistent with that show, and it's really been a lot of fun to get these competitors on and talk about what's going on. So
check it out. It's a lot of fun.
It is, though we are missing the fantasy updates, but that's another story for another time.
No one's asked for them. Like, people have to remind me, and I'll do them.
Oh my goodness. But where else can we find and see you, Nat?
Yes, well, I am on Twitch every Wednesdays at 6 Pacific, right there with my co-host Dylan Camacho, and some other people from the crew might pop up every once in a while. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Check us out there. And also, this week we got a new episode of No Chill coming out. It's probably the most anticipated episode. Chandru Dhanapani dropping Friday the 13th at 7 Pacific. So keep an eye out for that. Check it out and tell us what you think.
Absolutely. That one is going to be a lot of fun to see. I would definitely be tuning into that one once it drops. Everybody here, thank you so much for joining in. Those of you that are here with us live, if you're coming back on the replay, please make sure that you are hitting that like button, leaving a comment, and click that subscribe button if you have not already, so you can be all in tune with everything that's going on here on this channel, especially as these tournaments start rolling in. It's going to be really important to stay on top of everything that's going on, and we do it in under an hour. So really a good spot to come back in. But until next week, for Nat and the entire Call to Action crew, I'm Eggs, and this has been After Action Report, signing off.